The heat in Wichita Falls had that kind of weight that made your shirt stick to your back before you even made it to the car. I remember standing outside my grandfather's attorney's office, staring at the dark tinted glass like it might give me a reason to walk away. But I walked in, alone. The room was cool but stale. Mr. Lowell didn't smile when he greeted me. He just motioned toward a worn leather chair like we'd done this before. We hadn't. I sat. My hands, resting in my lap, felt too still. The ticking clock behind him filled the silence. When he started reading the will, his voice didn't carry anything. No sympathy, no shock. Just words. Then he said it. Everything, $135 million, goes to Marlowe Araujo. No gasps, no applause, just silence. The kind that lands like thunder before the lightning's even finished cracking. My mother stared at me like she didn't recognize my face. My father didn't say a word, but his jaw clicked the way it always did when he was holding back something nasty. No one stood. No one smiled. I didn't either. I didn't ask for this. I looked down at the envelope Mr. Lowell slid across the table. My name on it. My hands didn't reach for it right away. I knew once I touched it, nothing would be the same. When I finally did, it felt heavier than a brick. Raylene's glare didn't leave me for a second. She didn't blink, didn't flinch, just stared, like I'd stolen something from her purse. Eldon, Dad, kept his eyes down. That clenched jaw of his never softened. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but the words didn't come. It was like trying to speak through thick smoke. They weren't grieving, they were seething. A flicker of my grandfather's voice came back to me, low and half joking, but it stuck with me. This family will rip you apart if you let them. I had tried for years not to let them. My brother stood near the back. I don't remember his expression. Maybe he didn't have one. Maybe that was the point. I should have felt honored, blessed. That kind of money. It could change a life 10 times over, but sitting there, all I felt was hunted. Everyone left. No one said goodbye. Mr. Lowell gave me a nod before disappearing into the hallway. I was the last one in the room. I held the envelope tighter. It didn't feel like a blessing. It felt like a trigger. Back at the house, our house, though it felt less like mine with every passing hour, I tried to pretend things might settle. I unpacked some of Grandpa's old folders in the dining room, thinking maybe work would keep my mind straight. But the quiet didn't last. A cupboard slammed, then another. Raylene stood in the kitchen, banging cabinet doors like she was searching for a ghost. Eldon sat in his recliner, beer in hand, staring into nothing. "You wouldn't even exist if it weren't for us," she snapped. "Wow, that money, it should have been ours." I didn't respond at first, just stared at the form in my hand. "I didn't ask for it," I said, voice flat. "I didn't even know." Eldon didn't look away from the TV. "You've always been the favorite, ever since you learned how to play innocent." I felt the sting crawl up my neck but stayed steady. It wasn't my choice, it was his. Raylene picked up a whiskey glass and whipped it against the wall. It shattered just inches from my feet. I went upstairs, locked my door. Not because I was scared, but because I needed one damn minute to think. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened the envelope. Just a copy of the will and a handwritten note from Mr. Lowell saying we'd follow up in a week. Nothing fancy, nothing comforting. Am I wrong for accepting this? I thought. Would it have been more noble to say no? Give it to them and pretend I owed them everything? Images came rushing back. Me, 10 years old, watching my brother eat the last piece of bread while I said I wasn't hungry. Me, taking the blame for the broken vase. Me, learning to keep quiet. Grandpa once told me, "You were the only one who never asked. That's why I gave it to you." Was this a gift? Or a punishment for being quiet for too long? The kettle whistled downstairs. I made tea in silence. Raylene stood at the counter, arms crossed, watching. She didn't speak until I passed by. "You'll give it back," she said. "One way or another." I didn't flinch, didn't argue, just tightened my grip on the mug and walked away. That night, I put the envelope in the drawer of my nightstand, turned off the light, lay in bed listening to the thunder roll in. There was a storm coming, outside, sure, but the one building inside this house, That one never really ended. The storm didn't come all at once. It crawled in slowly, thickening the air room by room. I laid in bed that night, the envelope still in the drawer beside me. I hadn't touched it since placing it there. Didn't need to. Just knowing it was inches away, carrying numbers that made people mad enough to look through you, was enough to keep my spine stiff against the mattress. Downstairs, muffled voices, my parents. I couldn't catch the words, just the rhythm, short, clipped, too quiet to be casual. The kind of whisper that holds back poison. The window next to my bed was cracked open for the breeze, but it didn't help. The heat clung to the sheets. I turned over, turned again. My eyes burned, my chest tight. Sleep didn't want me. But eventually, I drifted into something like it. Not peace, just pause. Then I felt it. At first, it was confusion. My body jerked before my mind caught up. The pain hit like boiling oil, sharp, angry, unforgiving. My back arched off the bed as I screamed without thinking. I stumbled to my feet, clawing at my nightshirt, trying to reach a spot I couldn't see. My sheets were soaked, hot and sticky, smelling like wax and something else, like a church candle snapped in half. On the shelf near my desk was a small wax warmer, the kind people used for aromatherapy or stress relief. Only now, it was tilted, the lid halfway open, wax pooled over the edge. My door was open. I'd closed it. I knew I had. My parents' room was dark, the door shut. I stood there, holding my side, staring at the mess like it might apologize. In the bathroom mirror, I twisted enough to see my back. Red, raw skin bubbled with blisters, already angry with heat. I couldn't breathe right. Couldn't cry either. Just stared. Would they? No. That wasn't real, was it? I wrapped myself in the first towel I could grab and walked to the kitchen, leaving a faint trail behind me. Half wax, half disbelief. I called 911. Voice shaky. Tried to explain what happened without sounding paranoid. Just the facts, I told myself. Just say what's true. When the police arrived, Eldon answered the door like someone had knocked too early on a weekend. One eyebrow raised. "What's this about?" he asked like I was selling magazines. Raylene stepped in like she'd been rehearsing. "She's been fragile, ever since her grandfather passed, and all this estate stuff." I stood there in a towel, my back burning, clutching my side like it might fall apart. I tried to speak, but my mouth wouldn't open fast enough. One officer, young, maybe my age, pulled me aside. "Ma'am, could it have been a candle accident?" I wanted to scream. "Does this look like an accident to you?" But I couldn't say it. No camera, no proof, just a girl in a towel and a story that sounded like paranoia. The report was marked inconclusive. I signed it anyway. The next morning, Raylene made eggs like it was Sunday brunch. She didn't even blink when she said, "You should be more careful with open flame." Eldon didn't look at me. He just sipped his coffee and read whatever headline made him feel smart. I stood behind them, bandaged, tired, not sure how to form the question right. "I didn't leave the candle on," I said. My voice cracked halfway through. Raylene sighed, like I'd asked her to dig a ditch. "You always were dramatic. We all grieve differently." Grieve? That wasn't grief. That was gasoline on skin. Later, I noticed the window in my room was open wider than before. I never opened it past the lock. Never. My hands shook when I closed it. That night, I started writing in a notebook I kept locked in my closet. Wrote everything. What I saw, what I heard, the way their eyes didn't match their words. I slipped a small paring knife under my pillow. Not because I thought I'd use it, but because the illusion of safety is sometimes all we get. I didn't take pictures of my back. Didn't go to the ER. If the cops didn't believe me, who would? I cleaned the wound myself. Spread ointment across the blistered skin, wincing with every touch, taped on fresh gauze and threw away the towel I'd bled into. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands still slick from the cream, and wrote, "If they want to break me, they'll have to try harder. I've survived worse than wax." That night, I left the lights off, pretended to sleep. But I listened, closely, to every floorboard, every door creak, every second of silence between breaths. No tears came, no voice, just breath. and the quiet thud of a knife's handle tucked under cotton. 2 days after the wax, I was still moving like my skin might split open if I reached too far. The pain had dulled, but the burn stayed, not just on my back, everywhere. I couldn't sit straight without flinching, couldn't sleep more than an hour at a time. That morning, I drove to the bank. Just a quick trip, I told myself. Handle the estate bills, get the power company paid, nothing complicated. But the second I handed my ID to the teller, her smile stiffened. She clicked through the screen, then paused too long. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Araujo. Your account, it's been emptied. 4 large transactions over the past 48 hours, all processed under your name." I blinked at her. "That's not possible. I haven't bought anything." She lowered her voice. "There was a joint access on file. Years ago. You co-signed, with your mother." I don't remember co-signing anything, but that didn't matter now. My phone felt like lead in my hand. I dialed Raylene, not sure if I wanted her to answer. She picked up after the second ring. "I see you've been to the bank," she said, like she was commenting on the weather. "You had no right." She laughed. "Don't be dramatic. You have more than enough. I just took back what's mine." The line went dead before I could say anything else. I stood in the parking lot, keys in my hand, throat closed up like a fist. That was the first time I understood this wasn't mourning. It was war. Back home, I called the attorney I'd met the week before. Told him what happened. He listened, quiet, then asked the question I already dreaded. "Was the account solely under your name?" I thought it was. I didn't even remember the cosign. If she was listed, even from years ago, and there was no revocation in writing, it's technically legal. Technically. That word stung. So there's nothing I can do? We can open a case, freeze anything remaining, but recovery might be difficult. And it'll take time. I hung up, stared at the legal pad in front of me, blank except for a single sentence I'd scrawled hours ago. They built this system to protect themselves. That afternoon, I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey, is this real?" was all it said. Attached was a link. I clicked. It was a video. Me and Raylene in the hallway. She's crying. I'm yelling. At least that's what the edit made it look like. I remembered that moment. She'd cornered me after the reading, told me I was tearing the family apart. I raised my voice, just once, but in the video, it was clipped, chopped, tilted just enough to make me look unhinged. Raylene's voice played over the images, soft and broken. She changed after the money. We barely recognize her. The comments rolled in faster than I could read them. "She's a spoiled brat. Ungrateful little rich girl. Her poor parents, money ruins people." And there was Eldon. In the background of the video, saying nothing, looking sad. The perfect victim. I closed the screen, reopened it, watched again. Not because I wanted to. Because I couldn't believe how easy it was to bend reality. That wasn't me, but it was my face. I called the friend who'd sent the clip. "Can you take it down?" She hesitated. "It's already everywhere. Deleting won't help." I thought about going live, saying my side, but I knew how that would go. They didn't want the truth. They wanted a villain. So I stayed quiet, posted nothing, said nothing, turned off notifications. But even in silence, I could feel the noise. That night, I walked into my grandfather's study. I hadn't stepped in since the funeral. The air inside was still. Dust hadn't yet taken over, but the smell of his cologne still lingered in the wood. I sat at his desk, the same one where he'd signed the will, the same one where he probably decided to give it all to me. I looked at the family photos on the shelf. I took them down, all of them. Except for one, me and Grandpa. I was 10. We were at the lake, both of us smiling without forcing it. That photo stayed. I pulled out a new notebook, wrote a checklist, separate estate funds, remove shared access, document bank withdrawals, store video evidence, silence. At the top I wrote, "They want a villain. I'll give them silence." The next morning, I called the estate attorney and requested a new private account. No ties, no shared names. That evening, I started packing. Not to run, to prepare. I wasn't leaving, but they wouldn't see me coming either. I used to know this house. Every floorboard that creaked, every cabinet that stuck, every crack in the paint along the hallway. Now, 5 days after that, none of it felt familiar. Like the house itself had turned its back on me. It started small. A pillow I'd fluffed was flat again. A drawer I always closed now left half open. At first, I told myself I was tired, off balance. Maybe I bumped something without realizing it, but late that night, when I switched off the lamp beside my bed, something blinked. It was red, faint, easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. I stared at the mirror for a few seconds before I stood up, pulled it forward slowly, not breathing. Behind it, taped to the wood paneling, was a tiny black square, blinking still. A camera, battery warm, lens pointed straight at my bed. I stepped back. No words, just the rush of my own breath, loud in my ears. They'd been watching me, crying, dressing, sleeping, or pretending to. The panic came in waves. Was it only my room? What about the bathroom? Had I said something out loud? Had I confessed anything to the walls? I tore through the dresser drawers, checked under the bed, inside the closet vents, behind every framed photo. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I just searched, hands trembling, stomach rolling, until dawn. When the sun finally showed itself, I walked straight downstairs. Raylene sat at the table with her coffee, calm, comfortable. I held the camera in my hand. "You put this in my room?" She didn't blink, just sipped. "We just wanted to make sure you weren't unstable." I slammed the counter, hard. "That's a violation," I snapped. "You don't get to decide if I'm stable or not. You don't get to film me like some animal in a cage." Eldon looked up from his paper, finally, and said flatly, "We were protecting the family." I laughed once. It came out dry. "You're not even denying it," I said. Raylene looked at me like I was inconveniencing her. "You've been unpredictable. This is a stressful time. You don't monitor someone you love. You sit with them. You ask. You don't spy through a damn wall." She stood up, walked out. Just like that. I grabbed my phone, called Cassidy. I needed someone who wasn't part of this mess. Voicemail. I called again. Still nothing. So I got in the car. I didn't text. Didn't warn her. Just drove. When she opened the door, Cassidy's eyes darted everywhere but at me. I didn't waste time. "Have you been talking to my mother about me?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried to smile. "She just wanted to know if you were okay." My stomach dropped. She knew about things I never said to anyone but you. She quoted things I only said once, to you. Cassidy backed up slightly. "You always overreact. Your mom said you'd twist things." I couldn't breathe, not because I was shocked, because I wasn't. "You told her about the bank, about the wax. You let her twist my words and you didn't say anything." She stayed quiet. That silence said everything. I turned around, walked away, didn't slam the door, didn't yell, because Cassidy was the last person I had left. Back home, I went to the mirror, the one that hid the camera, and I smashed it. Didn't think, didn't flinch when a shard sliced across my palm. I picked up the glass pieces one by one, slowly. Each one caught my reflection, fractured and unfamiliar. They tried to reshape me, rewrite who I was. Not anymore. I grabbed a box from the closet, threw in the gauze from the burns, the withdrawal receipts, the copy of the will, and the camera. Evidence. Not for police, not for court. For me. The next morning, I printed a single sentence on paper and taped it to the hallway wall. "You lost the right to watch me. You lost the right to know me." I stopped answering calls, ignored texts, locked my door every night, bought my own security camera, aimed it right at the hallway, left it blinking, bright, visible. I took a picture of the hidden camera, sent it to the estate attorney. "If anything happens to me," the email said, "start here." I didn't cry that night, didn't scream, but I didn't pretend anymore either. I didn't hear the front door open that morning. I didn't hear it close. It was like the house had decided I didn't need to know who was coming or going anymore. I sat up slowly, every joint in my body aching not from age, but from something heavier, exhaustion that doesn't sleep off. I walked through the hallway. No one said good morning. No one looked up. Raylene was humming to herself while dusting the bookshelf. Eldon had the paper stretched out like a wall between us. I stood there for a few seconds, expecting something. A glance. A word. Nothing. I opened the living room cabinet, out of habit more than curiosity. The family album was still there, but pages had been torn out. Half the pictures were gone, half the past, too. Then I looked toward the wall near the entryway. My grandfather's portrait, the one he had taken at the store, wearing that stiff gray suit he hated, that picture was gone. I asked Raylene, "Where's the photo?" She didn't even turn around. "Why keep a picture of a man who tore this family apart?" That was all she said. I went upstairs to the attic. Supposedly, I was looking for the old estate files. In truth, I didn't know what I was looking for. I opened a trunk, then another, and then I saw it, folded at the bottom of a box, wrapped in an old sheet, the pillow, the one I'd slept on the night the wax hit my back. It still had the faint yellow stain in the center, still smelled like peppermint oil and melted plastic. I picked it up, sat down, held it in my lap. My throat tightened without warning. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just held it, like it still had heat in it, like it was still burning through me. The moment came back clearly. The scream, the smell, the door cracked open, the silence afterward. I thought about throwing it away, but my hand wouldn't move. Instead, I opened a box, labeled it, not evidence, just memory. Pain doesn't kill you. Being the only one who remembers it, that's what hollows you out. Around noon, I made a choice, not to fight, not to confront, just to watch. I went the rest of the day without speaking, not to test anyone, not to make a point, just to see. I made lunch, ate it at the kitchen counter. Raylene and Eldon ate theirs in the den. I cleaned the dishes, took out the trash, walked past them 4 times. They didn't say a word. And I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. When people ignore you long enough, you stop hearing your own voice too. That evening, I stepped into Grandpa's study. The door creaked like it always had. The smell inside hadn't changed. Leather, dust, the faint musk of his cigars. I ran my fingers over the desk, sat down in his chair, closed my eyes. I whispered, "Did you know it would get this bad?" My hand touched the inside of the drawer, something rough. I pulled it open wider, saw it etched into the wood. 3 sentences carved by hand. Stay sharp, stay silent, stay seen. I took a photo of the carving, wrote it down, printed it in block letters, taped it to the edge of my bedroom mirror. The next morning, I rearranged the hallway. I didn't ask, didn't explain. Where their photos used to be, I put up mine, me and Grandpa, me as a child holding his hand, him laughing, which was rare. Then I placed the pillow in the middle of the hallway. Didn't say anything, just left it there. Eldon walked past it later that day. Paused, stared, kept walking. Raylene picked it up an hour later and put it in the garage. That night, I brought it back. Didn't make a sound. Didn't look her in the eye. I started documenting again. Dates. Voices. Phone calls. The way Eldon's jaw clenched when I said, "Howard." The way Raylene's smile never touched her eyes. I wasn't preparing for a fight. I was making room. Room for myself. Room for what came next. In my journal, I wrote one final sentence before bed. I'm not leaving. I'm not explaining. I'm just making space where they hoped I'd disappear. I hadn't opened the front door all morning, didn't plan to, but just before noon, there was a knock. Not loud, not urgent, just steady. Mrs. Delaney stood there in a floral blouse that hadn't changed in 20 years, holding a yellowed envelope like it was something sacred. "I should have brought this earlier," she said. "He gave it to me months ago. Said to hand it over, if things got unbearable." She didn't ask how I was. She knew. The handwriting on the envelope stopped me. It was unmistakable. Grandpa's. Sharp strokes. No loops, no frills. Just like him. Inside, a letter. Short. Honest. If they turn on you, remember, my choice wasn't about money. It was about character. I stood still, feeling like the house fell quiet just to let those words ring. Mrs. Delaney looked at me the way only people who've buried too many years can. "Don't fight like them, honey," she said, touching my arm. "Fight smarter." That evening, after she left, I walked into the study like I was walking into a memory I wasn't sure I belonged in. The light through the blinds stretched across the floor in uneven lines. I stood at the desk, opened drawers I'd avoided for days. One of them stuck. Always had. Took a hard pull to get it free. Inside was a flash drive, wrapped in a napkin, labeled in all caps, "In case of fire." I plugged it into Grandpa's old desktop. One file. The timestamp read, 2 weeks before he died. His voice filled the room. Calm, measured. "If you're hearing this, it means things got worse than I'd hoped." He spoke plainly. Called out Raylene's manipulation, Eldon's apathy. Recounted nights I'd gone without dinner. Mornings I'd lied to cover bruises that weren't mine. "You won't be praised for taking the high road," he said. "But one day, it'll be the only one still standing." Then silence. I didn't cry. I just sat there, listening to the echo after his voice faded. It wasn't evidence. It was confirmation. I copied the file to a cloud drive, encrypted the folder, backed it up 3 different ways. Then I printed a transcript and stored it in the small fire safe under the bed. I sent a redacted version to my lawyer with the subject line, "For documentation purposes only, for now." And then I started drafting a timeline. No dramatic language, no color, just names, dates, places. It wasn't a declaration. It was insurance. "Don't fight like them. Fight smarter." I underlined it twice. My room changed that night. I replaced the locks on my door, moved the bed to face the window, set up a motion camera aimed at the hallway, tucked the journals into a file box beneath the dresser. The photos of family came down. All of them. In their place, I hung quotes. The transcript. Key phrases. The letter from Grandpa, framed. "You were the only one who never asked." That's why I gave it to you. I pinned that one above my bed. I started sleeping better, not deeply, but with a kind of stillness I hadn't had since the will reading. Raylene texted the next morning, "We need to talk." I didn't reply, just forwarded it to my attorney with a note. If they escalate, I won't be unprepared. Then I walked out the front door, drove myself across town, sat in a clinic lobby, filled out a form, mental health assessment, not because I needed to be saved, but because I needed a paper trail. Just in case they tried something else. I started logging everything. Dates, photos, tone of voice, gaps in silence. Where Eldon's eyes went when Raylene spoke. I wasn't waiting for justice. I was preparing for it. If silence had been their weapon, I'd turn mine into a blade. But not for stabbing, no. For cutting clean. It came in a plain manila envelope, no return address. The kind of envelope you don't want to open too fast. I slit the top and pulled out 2 pages. One, a scan of an old will, the other, a sticky note written in hurried print. He was never meant to keep it. You were. The will had Howard's signature, dated a year earlier. My father was listed as the sole heir. But on the second page, a thick black line crossed through his name. Next to it, in handwriting I knew as well as my own, was a note in the margin. Revoked, after February incident. I didn't need to ask what that meant. I took the documents to my lawyer, sat across from him in silence while he read. He raised his eyebrows but didn't speak until the end. "If you release this, you don't get to take it back," he said. I looked at the paper, then back at him. Neither can they. We booked the press room for the next day. That night, I wrote my statement by hand. 3 drafts. I didn't write it to defend myself. I wrote it to remember who I was when this all began. I practiced the tone, the timing, the pause after the second paragraph. I made sure my voice wouldn't shake, not from nerves, not from guilt. Then I played the audio again. Grandpa's voice, clear and steady. Legacy isn't about blood, it's about who shows up when no one else does. That one hit different the second time around. I chose not to invite major networks. Just the local stations. 2 independent reporters I'd followed for years, folks who still checked facts and didn't care about clicks. I printed the transcript of the audio. 2 versions of the will, packaged them neatly in folders, wrote my closing line on a yellow sticky note and stuck it to the podium. I didn't ask for this legacy, but I won't let it be buried. The press room was small, 20 chairs maybe, half of them filled, a few cameras, nothing fancy. I didn't want a circus. When I stepped up to the podium, I didn't clear my throat or adjust the mic. I just started, "I'm Marlowe Araujo. 2 weeks ago, my grandfather passed away. I stayed quiet about what came next, thinking time might settle things. I was wrong. I walked them through the timeline. The day the will was read, the withdrawals, the video, the silence. I handed out 2 documents. One, the final will. The other, the draft showing my father's name, scratched out after an incident in 2015 that my mother called a misunderstanding and I called Tuesday. Then I played the audio. If you're hearing this, then I failed to shield her in life. I hope this helps her find peace and truth. No one moved. One reporter dropped his pen. A woman in the back whispered, "That changes everything." The first question came from a younger guy with a notebook too clean for someone local. "Do you think your parents will respond?" "They already have," I said. "Just not with words." A woman next to him asked, "Why speak now?" "Because silence gave them the space to rewrite the story. I'm here to correct it." I didn't raise my voice, didn't blink too hard. I didn't need to. "This is not revenge," I said before stepping down. "This is release." My phone didn't stop for hours after. Some messages were kind. Some called me every name in the book. A few offered support if you ever need someone to talk to, which we all know means they wanted gossip. The news aired clips that night. My parents refused to comment. By morning, my lawyer sent word. The family might try to counterclaim emotional distress. I was ready for that. What I didn't expect was the voicemail. A voice I didn't recognize, raspy and low. "Thank you," the woman said. "I lived through something like this. You gave it a voice." I stood outside the building, phone still in my hand, as the sun dipped behind the courthouse. The wind picked up just enough to make the trees whisper. I thought back to what they said about me. Unstable, spoiled, ungrateful. They wanted to make me a problem. Now they'd have to look at the truth instead. The call came before breakfast. My lawyer didn't waste time. "They've gone on air," he said. "Check the morning news." I turned on the TV in the kitchen, toast still in the toaster. And there they were, Raylene and Eldon. Studio lighting made them look softer than real life ever did. Eldon wore a hospital gown, pale skin, slow words. His voice cracked just enough to seem believable. "I'm not angry at her," he said. "I just want to see my daughter again before I go." Raylene clutched his hand like a woman who'd never thrown glass across a room. "She's hurting," she told the camera, teary-eyed. "We all are. We just want our family back." The anchor teared up. The segment ended with a montage, photos of me as a kid, running through sprinklers, blowing out birthday candles. And then him, frail, sick, fragile. Social media exploded. She abandoned her dying father. How could she do this to them? Money makes people cruel. I muted the TV. "He's not dying," I whispered. "He's hiding." I called the hospital. No patient named Eldon Araujo had been admitted. By noon, I was in my car with a folder of security footage and 2 receipts from the past week, one from a liquor store, time-stamped 2 days ago, showing Eldon buying bourbon and cigarettes, the other from a car wash, not exactly hospice behavior. My lawyer warned me again. "Don't go emotional. Expose the lie, nothing more." I nodded. I wasn't there to beg. I wasn't even there to speak. I started reaching out, quietly, journalists I trusted, ones who didn't chase shock value. I built the file like a case. No adjectives, just facts, dates, names, locations, documents. I wasn't fighting feelings. I was dismantling fiction. And I was saving my breath for something bigger. That afternoon, I got a text from a friend I hadn't heard from in months. "Turn on Channel 5, your mom's on." I didn't want to. But I did. Raylene sat alone this time, her makeup carefully smeared for maximum impact. "I was strict," she said, "but never cruel. All I wanted was for our daughter to feel safe." She took a shaky breath. Marlowe, if you're watching this, please, just come home. We miss you. The host nodded, touched her hand. The audience applauded. The clip hit online within minutes. Mother's heart-wrenching plea to millionaire daughter. I stared at the screen. Didn't blink. Didn't move. Just let it play. Later that night, I opened my journal and wrote, "They use tears the way I used to use silence." By evening, I was done waiting. I emailed the media kit to an outlet I trusted, not national, not flashy, just thorough. Included security footage of Eldon drinking at a bar 3 nights ago, the liquor receipt, a copy of the falsified hospital bill, a scan of their new donation campaign set up under my name, and the voice clip from Grandpa. This house was built on lies. Don't let it become their legacy. At 7:32 p.m., the story dropped. Headline, "The Araujo smokescreen, lies behind the legacy." By 8 o'clock, it was everywhere. The comment section turned on a dime. Wait, he's not even sick? Is this fraud? Raylene and Eldon went dark. No statements, no interviews, nothing. The storm they tried to start had swallowed them whole. The next day felt still. Messages rolled in, half support, half venom. Someone called from a blocked number. "You were never supposed to win." I didn't even flinch. My phone background now read, "Don't trade dignity for peace." I walked outside. Dusk had painted the yard orange and gold. Wind tugged gently at the hem of my jacket. I wasn't smiling, but I wasn't small anymore. They lit a fire with wax. I turned it into light. My phone buzzed again. A national outlet, interview request. I didn't reply, just closed my eyes and let the quiet hold me. They called me Margot, the MC at the local scholarship event, a community thing, small town, folding chairs, lukewarm coffee, stood behind the microphone, squinting at the paper in his hand like it was a challenge. "We'd like to thank Margot Araujo, a distant relative of the late Howard Araujo, for funding this scholarship." Then he chuckled. "Guess success skips a generation sometimes." Laughter rippled through the room. Not loud, not cruel, just enough to sting. I smiled, tightly, walked up to the podium. My grip on the wood was firm, but my voice came out smooth. "I'm Marlowe," I said, "and legacy, to me, doesn't come from blood. It comes from choice. No anger, no tears, just fact." I thanked the teachers, mentioned the students, gave credit where it was due. I didn't correct the MC, didn't glare at the ones who laughed, let them sit with their awkward silence once they realized I wasn't who they thought, because I didn't need them to say my name right. They just needed to stop using it wrong. After the event, I sat in my car, keys in hand, scrolling through notifications. Then I saw it. A photo. Me, maybe 6 years old, arms wrapped around Raylene's waist, face buried in her apron, eyes closed like I felt safe. Caption read, "She always loved me. She just forgot how." Posted by her. Public. The comments were immediate. "She misses you. You should reach out. Maybe she's not as heartless as people say." And then the one that hit just right. "Love doesn't vanish. Sometimes it hides in hurt." I didn't cry. Didn't shake. I stared at the screen, then forwarded the post to my attorney. Note attached. Saved for record. That was all. Because love that has to be proven through manipulation isn't love at all. Later that afternoon, I drove to the cemetery. No cameras, no notes, no announcements. I parked under the old oak tree, walked the gravel path I hadn't touched since the funeral. Howard Araujo. The only name that ever made me feel like mine meant something. I sat down cross-legged next to the stone. "I kept your name clean," I said, "but I couldn't clean theirs." I placed a waxless candle at the base, no scent, no color, just a flame that wouldn't hurt anyone. A family across the field was laughing, the kind of laugh you hear when no one's watching. That sound used to make me jealous. Now it just made me feel real. You don't need everyone to believe you. You just need to stop needing them to. A few days passed. I met with my attorney one last time. We signed the final paperwork. No more shared accounts, no more access, no more loopholes. I walked out of that office lighter, stopped at a small cafe on the corner, the kind with mismatched mugs and handwritten menus, ordered a coffee, black. The barista smiled as he handed me the cup. "Hope I spelled your name right," he joked. I looked down at the sleeve. It read Marlowe. I smiled. "Even if you didn't, I know who I am." That evening, I opened a letter from a student, the first recipient of the Howard Araujo Scholarship. It wasn't long, just a thank you, a paragraph about what she wanted to become. A teacher. Said she'd never forget who helped her start. I folded the letter and placed it in a new file, labeled The Quiet Ones Fund. I opened a P.O. box that morning. It had a new name, my name. In my journal I wrote, I never needed to be loud, I just needed to be heard. And that was enough. The whacks, the wounds, the war. They didn't break me. They shaped me. But they don't get to define me. I didn't erase the past. I placed it behind me, and I kept walking.